Why was the editing of Voldemort's nose reminiscent of creating a Renaissance painting? Why was Rupert Grint scared as hell while flying on the broom? And how did the filming of the Battle of Hogwarts become a nightmare for the visual effects team? Hi, I'm Dylan, and you're watching Awesome Movies. How they filmed you-know-who. Okay, he's likely dead now, so we shouldn't be afraid to say his name. He can't hurt us anymore, can he? Anyway, Voldemort was flawlessly portrayed by Ralph Fiennes. But how exactly did they turn this famous, good-looking actor into the snake-faced, noseless Dark Lord? The makeup team practiced a lot prior to starting to work with Fiennes, so he only had to spend 2 hours in the makeup chair before filming a scene. Eyebrow blockers, temporary tattoos that imitated veins on his head, fake teeth, and fingernails, all these were used to turn Fiennes into a subhuman monster. And of course, the infamous nose. It was obviously impossible to create it with the power of makeup, so it was done with visual effects. In every shot with Fiennes, the CGI team had to edit out his nose and add the snake-like slits on his face. According to the visual effects supervisor Paul Franklin, it was incredibly hard. It's very laborious, very time-consuming, and the level of detail you have to hit is exquisite, he said. It's like creating a Renaissance painting. The digital brushwork has to be very, very fine to get it to work. Did you have any idea that erasing a nose could be so difficult? Well, let's talk about something more peaceful than the darkest wizard of all time. Was Hogwarts real? It actually was, but only partially. A lot of different places all over Great Britain served as locations for filming the exterior and interior of the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. But since Hogwarts was no ordinary castle, just finding a beautiful location wasn't nearly enough. All the magic had to be created on the set or added with the help of special effects. The moving portraits, for example, were a mix of real paintings and a green screen. The latter was replaced by moving images in post-production. To create the moving staircases, they used only one real staircase and a tiny model of multiple other staircases. So while the actors were standing on one staircase, the rest were moving around. And later, the visual effects team gave us the magical view we saw in the final version. And in some cases, the visual effects team didn't only need green screens, but also green gloves. Remember the scene in The Half-Blood Prince where Hermione places books near the shelves and they float back to their places by themselves? While the books were real, the scene also included people on the other side of the shelves. Wearing green gloves, they'd take the books from Emma Watson and just place them where they belonged. Naturally, the gloves were removed in post-production. And you have to remember the dreamy vision of the Great Hall with all the candles floating in the air. It turns out that these candles were not added by CGI. They were real, at least in the first movie. What the visual effects team had to edit out were the wires which the candles were suspended by. But although it created a magical atmosphere for the actors, it turns out it wasn't very practical. The heat from the candles burned through the wires, and many of them wound up on the tables. It's safe to say that it didn't help the filming process, so in the subsequent movies, they decided to add the floating candles in digitally. And finally, to film the sweeping views of Hogwarts, 86 artists from the art department had to construct a model of it. It was incredibly detailed and included every field, tower, and courtyard. No wonder it took them months to build it. All the secrets behind Quidditch. No Harry Potter movie is complete without at least one scene of someone flying on a broomstick. Whether it's during a Quidditch match, a Triwizard tournament, or being chased by Death Eaters, it always looked epic. And it always made us jealous of the characters, who could use a seemingly ordinary broomstick to fly high. That would be an excellent replacement for our means of transport, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't work like that in the real world. To film the scenes where the characters played Quidditch, a variety of methods were used. One of them included jumping up and down on a trampoline in front of a green screen. Rupert Grint, who played Ron, recalled one such scene. You go about 30 feet in the air. I was holding a broom and they were throwing balls at me. It's quite scary. Yeah, I bet it is. Another technique they used was placing a broomstick on top of a robot standing on a tall rig. The actors would sit on the broom and the robot would move around underneath them. Of course, it was all done in front of a green screen, and the artificial wind was added to make them look like they were really flying. Most of the time, the actors were filmed separately, so they often didn't really talk to each other during the scene. Besides, it only looked like they were steering their broomsticks. In reality, a computer program determined the movements, while the actors were just trying to hold onto their broomsticks and act at the same time. Filming one scene usually took hours because they needed multiple angles for each actor. Imagine how uncomfortable it must have been to sit on a broomstick for that long. Hail to everyone who made it happen. Inside the making of the magical creatures, from house elves and centaurs to hippogriffs and giants, it was a pleasure to watch all of them. Let's start with Hagrid. Oh, wait, did you think that because he was a human played by a human that he didn't require any special effects? Well, then you forgot that he was half giant, so he had to look considerably taller than the rest of the cast. For this reason, Robbie Coltrane had a body double, Martin Bayfield, who is over 6 feet tall. Bayfield replaced him in quite a few scenes, wearing a mask to make him look like Hagrid. But that doesn't mean that Coltrane didn't have his own special visual tricks. In the scenes inside his hut, for example, they used 2 different versions of the cabin. One of them was larger so that the other actors looked smaller in it, while the other was tiny to make Coltrane look gigantic. To show us Hagrid's pet, a hippogriff named Buckbeak, 3 different versions of the creature had to be constructed. One of them was standing, another rearing, and a third laying down. For all of them, the CGI team had to create every single feather from scratch. After taking inspiration from real birds and studying their movements, they also had to consult with vets and physiologists to ensure that Buckbeak was a lifelike, proportional creature. Another creature that looked utterly realistic was the basilisk. The CGI team managed to create a detailed model of the beast based on J.K. Rowling's descriptions, and then they made a giant life-size version. To bring the creature to life, they used a combination of practical and visual effects. The model they created was able to move and could even slither up toward Harry in one of the scenes where he battled the beast. Dan Radcliffe must have been terrified by it. But luckily, not all the creatures in the Harry Potter world were so horrendous. House elves, for example, were quite nice, for the most part. Dobby, who was undoubtedly the nicest and the bravest of them, was a wholly digitalized character in the Chamber of Secrets. Toby Jones, the actor who voiced him, would only sometimes stand on the set to create the presence of this magical creature for the other actors. But in the Deathly Hallows, the free elf was portrayed by actress Diane Gibbons, who had to wear a bald cap and other prosthetics on set and film in front of the green screen. But Toby Jones remained the voice behind the beloved Dobby. And now we get to some of the most epic scenes in the whole franchise! Filming the Battle of Hogwarts. From the explosive fiend fire scene in the Room of Requirement to Neville killing Nagini, there were quite a few scenes that made the Deathly Hallows Part 2 so memorable. One of them took place in the Chamber of Secrets, where Ron and Hermione went to destroy one of the Horcruxes with the help of the Basilisk's tooth. As soon as they did it, all the water in the chamber rose, seemingly to smash them. But it didn't have enough power, and it only soaked them head to toe. The scene looked dreadful after adding all the effects, but on the set, it was very different. Obviously, they filmed it in front of the green screen. And instead of a massive amount of water coming from all around, Emma and Rupert just got a bucket poured on their heads. I hope it was at least warm. And you have no idea just how much work was put into making the Battle of Hogwarts happen. To shoot it, the visual effects team had to create a completely CG-rendered version of the castle. This film required us to build the environment for Hogwarts and all of the staged action in the majority of the film. The battle for Hogwarts and the film's showdown between Voldemort and Harry, Tim Burke, senior VFX supervisor, commented on it. It was developed from the 20-foot-long and 12-foot-high miniature of the castle they had used previously. The model was so detailed that it even covered profiles of the handrails on the staircases leading up to Dumbledore's tower. Nothing was left out in order to make Hogwarts look realistic. And since they had to do multiple takes of the destruction of the School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, it was necessary to build multiple versions of the model, just for the sake of destroying them all. But it was all totally worth it. Which facts about the visual effects in the Harry Potter series surprised you the most? And what else would you like to learn about your favorite series? Share in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and stay awesome. Thanks for watching.